So we're going to continue our discussion about al-khabar, the nominal predicate. And so the author says, may Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala have mercy upon him. As you can see, we already started reading some of this. So I'm just going to leave all these marks here. And I'm going to repeat and then keep going from where we left off. Asl, original text. وَيَقَعُ الْمُبْتَدَأُ نَكِرَةً. The mubtada, the nominal subject, could fall indefinite when in amma aw khas, if it became general, all-inclusive, broad. When it's broad, aw khas, or when it's specific, particular. It could be nakira, the mubtada, it could be nakira, indefinite, when it's broad. So it's indefinite but broad. Or when it's particular, specific. Nahwu, such as ma rajulun fi dar. No man is in the house. So rajul is indefinite. Ma rajulun fi dar. A man. Not a man, not a man is in the house. So a man here is indefinite. Yani, here, as far as I can tell, there's slight difference between Arabic and English in here, because I didn't personally find that English has an issue with an indefinite subject. But at the same time, though, English only has one type of sentence, which is verbal sentence. Every English sentence requires a verb to be its predicate. And in Arabic, when you have that type of sentence, there's no problem with an indefinite subject, fa'il. For the fa'il to be indefinite is not a problem. We're talking about mubtada here, not fa'il. So maybe that's why in English you're gonna have you can have an indefinite subject with no problem. Just like you could have in Arabic an indefinite fa'il with no problem. Means subject of a verbal sentence. Now we're talking about nominal sentence. The subject of a nominal sentence has to be ma'rifah, definite, not indefinite. But you could make it indefinite under some conditions. Like if it's broad, here's an example. Ma rajulun fi dar. There's not a man in the house. Or not a man is in the house. Now that's a valid subject, though it's nakira. It's a valid mubtada. And like this ayah, ilahum ma'allah. Is there an ilah, a God with Allah? That's a rhetorical question. No, there is no God with Allah. So, ilah, looking at our markings here, we have this Hamza here. That's for a question. And then looks like it says here, Hamza means is. It's not, though. Hamza doesn't mean is. Is a verb of existence. The verb to be, it's a verb for existence in English. If you said, he is here, that means he exists here. Really, this Hamza doesn't translate as is. I would say in English, as a translation of this ayah, is there a God with Allah? A-ilahum ma'allah? So someone might say or think that that Hamza is, and then ilah, a God, ma'a, with Allah, but it's not is. It's just the question. This Hamza is basically question mark. So really, if we want to take the word is out of the translation and just rely on inflection, then the ayah is saying, a God with Allah? No is. There's a question though. A ilahun ma'allah. A God with Allah? That's valid mubtada, although it's nakira, indefinite. What makes it broad? In this case, it's the question that makes it broad. In the first case, it's the negation that makes it broad. No man in the house. Not a man is in the house. It's broad by virtue of the negation. Like, don't we say, Laysa kamithlihi shay? Nothing is like him. Isn't that broad because of the negation? Yeah, it's broad by virtue of the negation. You learned that. They say, النكرة في سياق النفي تفيد العموم. The indefinite word in a negative context promotes a generality, a broadness. So that's broad. And the second one is broad by virtue of the question. And keep note that question and negation in Arabic are similar. The negation and the inquiry or the interrogative, they are similar. Keep that in mind. You're going to need that. Shibhun nafi. What's like a negation? Shibhun nafi. The likes of a negation. What's that? Al-istifham, a question. And maybe something else. And وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ. And surely a believing slave man is better than a pagan. So here, abid, that's the mubtada. That's the subject of our sentence. Slave, a slave. Khair, that's our predicate. Better. So in English, if I were to say a slave is better, so you have indefinite subject and then is better, no problem here. But in Arabic, without this one in the middle here, mu'min, to qualify it, a believing slave is better, then it doesn't work. Why? Because here, let me show you. Just find a blank spot here. For example, if we say abdun, and then we say khayrun, that's not a valid sentence. If you're thinking from translation perspective, you might not see it. Say, a slave is better. What's the problem? Problem is that why doesn't that mean a better slave? A better slave. Abdun khayr. A better slave, which is not a sentence. Because in Arabic, you know that the adjective comes after, it comes second, not first. You say in Arabic, rajulun salih, pious man. Rajulun mu'min, believing man. Rajulun kafir, disbelieving man. Abdun khayr, better slave. So there's no sentence here. That's not a valid sentence. Abdun khayrun. So you can't have mubtada that's nakira, indefinite. Unless you have something that makes it broad. Or you have something that limits it and makes it specific or particular or qualified, rather. Qualified. Or limits it. So let's go back to what we were reading here. وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ. So now you can see with the combination of, let me go ahead and lighten this up a little bit here. So now you can see here, abdun. So this wow, that's conjunction. Atifa. Its status in the sentence depends on whatever came before. If we want a generic translation, we'll say and. Then this lamb here is lamul ibtida, the initiating lamb. It's for emphasis. So I could say in the translation, indeed, or certainly, or verily, or surely, or something like that. And indeed, or and certainly, and verily. Abidun, a slave. And indeed, a slave. So if the word khayr came right immediately after that, it would mean a better slave, but doesn't mean that. Here, the adjective came, which is mu'min. This adjective qualifies what it's describing. So limits it. So a believing slave. Now, since we limited it, now we can use this indefinite abid as a mubtada. Now it means a valid sentence. Wala abidun mu'minun khayr. And a believing slave is better. Khayrun min mushrik, better than a pagan. Better for marrying a Muslim woman than a kafir. A Muslim man who's a slave man is better for marrying a Muslim woman than a kafir, even if he impresses you, that kafir. And here's another example from the hadith. وَخَمْسُ صَلَوَاتٍ كَتَبَهُنَّ اللَّهُ. خَمْسُ صَلَوَاتٍ كَتَبَهُنَّ اللَّهُ. There are five of prayers. Five of prayers. I'm deliberately squeezing the word of into the translation. I could say there are five prayers. But closer, a more literal translation, there are five of prayers because it's idafa. Khamsu salawatin. Khamsu salawatin. So it's idafa there. Idafa is going to usually translate either with the word of in there in your construction, in your compound, or with an apostrophe S somewhere. Khamsu salawatin. Five of prayers. Katabahun Allah. Allah ordained. So if you take off salawat, because khams is the mubtada, just khams. Five. So if you say khamsun, then it would mean five. Allah ordained. So it doesn't work. It's going to be like the same one I told you. Abdun khayrun. A better slave. Khamsun katabahun Allah would be five Allah ordained. Five Allah ordained. That's not a sentence. And five is so open. Because five what? Five people? Five cars? So then, when we put it into idafa, annexation, then it becomes limited, yani becomes determined more, and then it will be valid for being a mubtada. Khamsu salawatin, 5 of prayers, katabahun Allah, did Allah ordain. Yani, when I translate, I need to squeeze a verb in there to make a proper English sentence. 5 of prayers did Allah ordain. Or 5 of prayers Allah ordained. No, not this way. If I say 5 of prayers Allah ordained, then 5 is not subject of the sentence, direct object. Then the sentence would mean Allah ordained 5 of prayers. And then I'm just reversing it. 5 of prayers Allah ordained. So that's not the translation of this sentence. Khamsu salawatin katabahunna Allah. 5 of prayers did Allah ordain. Now it's correct sentence, yani, for what the author is teaching us. Any questions so far? If so, please ask. So that's his original manual. And now he wants to explain for us. He says, Ash-sharh, the explanation. Al-aslu fil mubtada'i an yakuna ma'rifah, la nakirah. The origin of the mubtada, nominal subject, is that it would be definite, not indefinite. لأن النكرة مجهولة غالبا, because the indefinite is usually unknown. The indefinite has an amount of obscurity. Usually. والحكم على المجهول لا يفيد. So, the origin about the mubtada is that it would be definite, not indefinite. Because the indefinite is unknown, obscure, usually. He says, وَالْحُكْمُ عَلَى الْمَجْهُولِ لَا يُفِيدُ. And so if I just translate this sentence very literally, he's saying, giving a judgment about something unknown is uninformative. Giving a judgment, judging the unknown, is uninformative. وَالْحُكْمُ عَلَى الْمَجْهُولِ لَا يُفِيدُ. So that sentence in particular, subhanallah, if I had reviewed better before this morning, I probably would have a very nice explanation of that for you. But I'll just repeat for you something that I mentioned for you. It's close. So here, Abdun. Let's use a different example though. So if I say رجل قائم, رجل قائم versus زيد قائم. رجل قائم versus زيد قائم. Now, as for Zaydun قائم, Zayd is definite because that's a man's name. Qa'imun is indefinite. Now, for sure, we definitely have a proper sentence. You bring something definite and determined, Zayd, and then you tell about him, Qa'im. So that's the judgment. Zayd's judgment is that he's Qa'im, standing. So a judgment about what's known is informative. as opposed to saying rajulun qa'im, because now is that supposed to mean a man is standing, or is that supposed to mean a standing man? So that really means a standing man. And now we're still not satisfied. So that's probably what it means. It's uninformative. If we judge him as standing, the rajul, rajulun, what about him? Give me a judgment about him. Qa'imun, standing. Okay, what about him? It's still not informative. رجل قائم الحكم على المجهول لا يفيد. Giving a judgment about the unknown is uninformative, as opposed to Zaydun qa'im. Now, what if, though, both sides were definite, such as if we were to say Zaydun al-alim, the scholar. Zayd al-alim, Zaydun al-alimu. Zayd is definite, and al-alimu is definite. Now, this has two ways. Possibly this is a valid sentence. If so, it means Zayd is the scholar. Zaydun al-alim. Zayd is the scholar. And possibly it's not a sentence, and al-alim is merely an adjective. Zaydun al-alim, then it would mean Zayd the scholar. And that's not a complete sentence. Here, that has two valid ways. Now that's going to be like when Allah says in the Quran, Huwa al-awwal, he, that's definite, is the first. That's definite too. Huwa al-awwal. Zayd al-alim is valid sentence. All right. So let's get back to the book here. الأصل في المبتدأ أن يكون معرفة لا نكرة. The origin of the mubtada is that it would be definite, not indefinite. لأن النكرة مجهولة غالبا, because the indefinite is unknown, obscure usually. والحكم على المجهول لا يفيد, and giving a judgment about the unknown is uninformative. So it became clearer, the statement. You can see it has a long footnote here. I don't want to go into that with you now, though. It's just talking about the difference between the mubtada and khabar versus the fi'l and fa'il, and why the fa'il can be indefinite while the mubtada can't. We'll just stick to Ibn Hisham. ويجوز أن يكون نكرة إذا كان عاما أو خاصا. But it is valid for the mubtada to be indefinite if it were broad or if it were qualified. فالأول, the first one, for it to be broad, كقولك, it's like for you to say ما رجل في الدار, not a man is in the house. Not, ma, that's negation. Not رجل, a man, في الدار, is in the house. And, is, I've squeezed it in for the translation. Not a man in the house, but it's a sentence in Arabic. Not a man in the house. That's a complete sentence in Arabic without the verb. وَقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى, and also another example is like God's saying, exalted is He. أَإِلَهٌ مَعَ اللَّهِ, a God with Allah? That's a complete sentence. It's fine, eloquent sentence. That's an eloquent sentence. A God with Allah? So I might have mentioned for you before, in English, they say there's a difference between how you write and how you speak. But originally in Arabic, there's not a difference. And that's important for comprehension purposes. Because that's how someone would speak, isn't it? A God with Allah. He says, فَالْمُبْتَدَأُ فِيهِمَا عَامٌ. So the mubtada in these two examples is broad. لِوُقُوعِهِ نَكِرَةً فِي سِيَاقِ النَّفْيِ وَالْإِسْتِفْهَامِ. Because of falling indefinite in the negative context or in an interrogative context. It was indefinite in a negative or interrogative context. Those words are clear for you. Negative, interrogative. We're talking grammar here. So you definitely have to know grammar words. Someone might hop in the lesson and then he listens for a while and then he gets discouraged and he leaves. Maybe doesn't understand all of what's being said. It's like if a person is not interested in sports and then he goes to a sports channel, they're going to talk all kinds of stuff. He doesn't know what they're saying. He doesn't know their words. And like that, any subject, any field. وَالثَّانِي كَقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى. The second case, limiting this indefinite word, is like God's saying, exalted is He. وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ. And indeed, a believing slave man is better for marrying a Muslim woman than a pagan, even if he impresses you. That's what the ayah says. وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ. Even if he impressed you. He might be handsome, might have nice figure, square jaw, everything, nice pecs, money, etc. A believing slave man is better than this pagan man for marrying a Muslim woman. وَقَوْلِهِ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. And also the Prophet's saying, may peace and blessings be upon him, خمس صلوات كتبهن الله في اليوم والليلة. خمس صلوات كتبهن الله في اليوم والليلة. 5 of prayers did Allah ordain throughout the day and the night. في اليوم والليلة. Fi, throughout. Al-yawmi wal-layla, the day and the night. Don't box yourself in when it comes to these Arabic words. Like you're going to say, someone, a novice, is going to say, fi means in, min means from, ala means on. And then that's it. Anytime he sees fees, he's going to translate it as in. You have to be looser than this. You have to be you have to have more wiggle room than that if you want to have good translation and good expression for whoever you're translating for, teaching and the like. Fi, during, throughout, for example. You want to understand the Arabic sentence, but then if you have some strength in English, you want to render that into a decent English sentence, not just a word-for-word version of the Arabic sentence necessarily. So 5 of prayers Allah ordained in the day and the night, if I translate it verbatim. Katabaha, katabahun Allah. He katabaha, awjabaha. Means he made them obligatory. The kitab in Arabic sometimes means al-wujub, the obligation. Yani, it means an ordinance. Yani, just for your information here, slight digression. Kitab in the Quran sometimes means the Quran, sometimes means another book, sometimes means revealed books with an S. Kitab, singular word. Sometimes means revealed books with an S. Sometimes means the guarded tablet. Sometimes it means an obligation, an ordinance. Just for your information. Yeah, and sometimes kitab means al-kutubu samawiyah. The word is kitab though. So he says here, فَالْمُبْتَدَأُ فِيهِمَا خَاص. The mubtada in these two examples, the one about the believing slave man and the one about 5 of prayers. The mubtada in these two cases is limited, is qualified. لِكَوْنِهِ مَوْصُوفًا فِي الْآيَةِ, because in the verse it is described with an adjective. Abdul mu'min, believing slave. So had you just said slave, it's too open to be a mubtada. So you can't say abdun khair. It doesn't mean a slave is better. It just means a better slave. So it's not a sentence. So describe the abd if you want khair to be your khabar, if you want khair to be your predicate here, then, and you want abd to be your mubtada, your subject, then describe this abd so that you will qualify him, and then that will be good enough to use abd as your subject. A believing slave is better. So in the ayah, what limited the word abd was the sifa, the adjective, because adjectives are qualifiers. If I say, bring me a book, you can bring me any book. So if I say, bring me the book, then if you don't know which one, you're going to say which one. If I say, bring me a red book, then you can't bring me any book, but there's not one in particular you have to bring me. So see, it's in the middle there. You need to bring me one that's qualified to that degree. If I say, bring me the red book, then it's both of them, qualified and definite. وَمُضَافًا فِي الْحَدِيثِ. And in the hadith, what qualified the mubtada is the annexation, the idafa. خَمْسُ صَلَوَاتٍ, 5 of prayers. Because it's not 5 of something else. Numbers are inherently obscure. So someone might say, I want 4. And then the other one say, 4 wives, brother? He said, no, I just need $4, not 4 wives. Because 4 by itself is obscure. Because it's a number. وقد ذكر بعض النحاة لتسويغ الابتداء بالنكرة صورا. Some grammarians have mentioned for validating initiation of a sentence by an indefinite word scenarios. Some grammarians have mentioned scenarios for validating the subject of the sentence being indefinite. وأنهاها بعض المتأخرين إلى نيف وثلاثين موضعا. Some of the latter day scholars have counted up to 30 something spots where the mubtada can be indefinite, like in the explanation of Ibn Aqil for the millennial poem of Ibn Malik. وذكر بعضهم أنها كلها ترجع إلى الخصوص والعموم. And some of them have mentioned that all of these, in the end, refer back to being qualified or being broad. فليتأمل ذلك. So let that be pondered. It's like he's saying, if you encountered that long list of some scholars, 30 something cases of the mubtada being indefinite, ponder on that and just see how each one goes back to either being qualified or being broad. So I think we should probably stop there.